Is your practice tired of wrestling with insurance denials, deciphering EOBs, and watching your revenue slip through the cracks? You are not alone. Welcome to The Claim Game, the podcast designed to cut through the confusion and provide you with the best practices for revenue cycle management success. We are Jeremy and Kathryn Zug, and we've been with people just like you in the trenches. Each week, we'll break down complex billing processes, share real-world solutions from practices like yours, and ask questions of the game makers and changers of healthcare so you can take control of your revenue. Let's turn those claim denials into deposits and help you return to focusing on patient care. It's time to win the claim game.
Welcome back, everybody, to The Claim Game. I'm Jeremy Zug, and this is Kathryn Zug. We are your hosts. As a reminder, in this season of The Claim Game, we're going through the revenue cycle management best practices, one board territory at a time. Last time around the table, we discussed HIPAA compliance, 1 Ps, not 2 Ps.
Was riveting.
It was riveting. Remember, these are your key territories, and how you master each one of these domains of revenue cycle management is critical for if you're going to continue to be a sustainable, profitable practice, or if you're going to be a little prison for yourself. So you want to make sure you're nailing these.
We're almost done with the second territory of 6.
Sure are. We'll be grabbing a magnifying glass to zoom in on spaces within these territories, and we're going to reveal to you all of our wisdom from 10 plus years of doing this, how to win at revenue cycle management and navigate the board with ease and confidence.
So, quick reminder, if you are like, what are you talking about? Territories, landscape, go back to round 1 and listen to that episode. We talk about the landscape of the board and what is included in these 6 territories. We talk about the life cycle of RCM.
So we've been deep in the patient registration territory. We've covered intake, provider assignment, scheduling, wait lists,
HIPAA compliant.
And today we're making the final move in this territory, which is
checkout.
Kathryn, when a patient session is over, it's easy to think that the work is done. But you've mentioned before that a patient's registration is not truly complete until the first checkout has happened. Why is this final step so critical for a practice's revenue cycle?
Well, it closes the loop. And I think this is the place to kind of put the final punch in for making the patient feel cared for. So you're going to make sure that their payment method works before it becomes harder to get a hold of them, which is a big deal. You're going to schedule the next appointment now, again, before it becomes harder to get a hold of them. And then this is just a really easy way to offer your help in answering any questions they might have, which is better service for the patient and will, again, help with your reputation. I promise I will stop saying reputation when we're done with patient registration, but this is just such a reputation building activity.
Yeah, so what are the key elements of a solid checkout process? What should a practice be doing from a tactical perspective to ensure they cash in on this final move?
Yeah, so I'm just going to go kind of granularly here.
Do it.
Something needs to physically guide your patient to a checkout person. Step 1. That could be the provider saying, that's all for today. Go to the front desk and check out. It could just be mentioning that to them. It could be physical signage. But whatever it may be, you need to have a physical checkout procedure of some sort. And then once at the counter with a qualified individual, they're going to collect payment if they haven't done that before the appointment using the payment authorization form on hand. So part of the intake paperwork includes a payment authorization form, which you've had multiple chances at this point to make sure that you actually have the payment authorization form on hand. But guess what? You get a final chance to make sure
No kidding.
that there's a payment authorization on hand. And now, not only am I going to make sure that I have it on hand, I'm going to make sure that it works. Because I'm going to attempt to run their card on file according to my payment policies. And then this next point, it does not relate specifically to the first checkout, but I do want to mention it as a recurring checkout procedure. This is a place that you are going to set up payment plans. If you are seeing a patient at checkout and you have pulled them up in your EHR and you can see that they have at least one, but maybe multiple past due balances, now is the time to follow your payment plan process. They do not leave your desk until you have a payment plan on file, whether that means they're paying you right now or they're paying a flat fee every month until it's paid. Now is the time to set that up. It would be as easy as, hey, Jane, I see that you have multiple prior unpaid balances totaling
$100.
$100.
$500.
Well, 100's kind of low.
All right,
I guess it could be $20. Would you like to take care of that today? No, I don't want to take care of that today. Okay, well, we need to set up a payment plan then to get that paid. What are you able to do to get that paid up? And then you can walk them through what you allow. First, I would listen to what they are able to do, and then I would walk them through what you allow. And I think I've said this before, and I think that if you go to the Hourglass, this will be written into our financial policy forms, but we don't allow payment plans for current balances. We only allow them for past due. So if they have a current balance, we're going to pay that one in full today. That's the first one that gets paid. And then we're going to take care of the history. We don't want to add to the debt. We just want to have a plan to deal with the prior debt.
Yeah.
So we're going to take care of that. And then you're going to look and say, hey, Jane, I see that Dr. Smith wants to see you again in 6 months. Let's get that on the calendar now. What days do you have available? And you get it scheduled right then and there. Maybe you give them a little take home or they get an email with that for their calendar. And then you might say, do you have any questions about your appointment or about scheduling or your bill? It might also be a point where you say, maybe when you bring up the fact that they have a past due balance, they're surprised.
Could be.
They could be surprised. They might say, what do you mean I have a past due balance? I had a Met out of pocket, or I was told I was covered at 100%. It's a great opportunity for your checkout person to say, let me look at those balances and see what happened. And I'm going to pull open the ERA and I'm going to say, yeah, it looks like this actually processed toward the deductible because your plan renewed on January 1st.
That's right. Sure did.
And your out of pocket started over. That would be really, really helpful value add information right there at the desk.
Yeah.
And then it's also a place to provide any paperwork. So if they need a referral to go to a different specialist, or if they are an out-of-network patient that needs a super bill, that's the time to do it. I really think checkout is about going above and beyond with communication and customer service.
Without a doubt. What about the importance of patient communication during checkout? How do we talk about money without damaging our relationship with the client?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. I think that's why I spent some time in that last question, kind of walking through how I might answer a billing question or, hey, this one didn't get paid. Let me explain what I'm seeing from a billing perspective that would explain why this didn't get paid. Because I understand you were told something different. You had a different expectation. And honestly, the checkout shouldn't be the first time they're hearing about it. They probably should have already received some kind of email. But if it is the first time they're hearing about it, in person is so much easier, I think, because keyboard courage is a thing.
Oh, it totally is. Yeah. Well, and I just got off a podcast with Wendy Pitts-Reeves, and she was talking about how the relationship with clients actually improves the more you talk about money and what's owed and because collecting balances. People want to pay you.
And there are actually reasonable explanations for why things don't go the way that you think they're going to.
Yes.
So here is my very, very, very key important piece of advice about checkout. Whoever is in charge of checkout needs to be extremely well trained.
And good with people. Yes. Stop putting the grumpy person up front.
Yeah. Talking about money and people get really defensive about money. So
spicy.
Like, hey, I understand that this is not what you expected. Let me tell you why this balance is the way that it is. Yeah. Easy peasy. Information is so good at diffusing emotion.
So good.
Let's have someone who can very clearly read an ERA, who can, or maybe you have an external claim management spreadsheet is what we call it here, where I can pull up, I think I called her Jane. I can pull up Jane's name and I can see her claims and I can understand by reading the notes of the biller why the claims didn't process the way we thought, or if there was a denial issue or something along those lines. So well-trained person that understands the tools in your office, that understands how to navigate their EHR really well, and then that has some good customer service skills.
Yes.
This needs to be a high quality person. And then it's really crucial to set clear financial expectations from that very first intake touch point so that the patient is not surprised by anything that is discussed at checkout.
That's right.
The checkout process should be a transparent discussion, not a confrontation. You can offer payment plan options or financial hardship policies to show that you're flexible and that you're committed to patient care. Again, this is such a customer service role. But in order to do that, whoever's at the desk has to really know your internal policies.
Mhm.
Like, so that they're not like, oh, let me just like look it up.
No looking up.
No looking up.
I have it right now, right here. Yeah.
Yes. And as I mentioned above too, there is a slight differences between a first checkout and the subsequent checkouts, because the first time I'm verifying that the payment authorization works, there's not going to be a payment plan conversation. I might learn for the first time that they need a super bill, and so I'm documenting this information. And then, okay, Jeremy, pretend you're a patient asking a question to someone at checkout. What might a patient question look like that I can field as a checkout person?
Oh, sure. What do I owe today?
Well, let me pull up your file. I'm going to go into the EHR. I'm going to pull up their billing settings tab, and I'm going to see what they owe. And it looks like you have a $20 copay according to the way that the last 3 appointments processed, and we're still in the same calendar year. It looks like your policy doesn't renew until 12/1. So I would assume that this copay is correct. I might ask the patient, are you aware of your out-of-pocket maximum being met since the last appointment?
No.
Okay, then I would assume that you still owe a $20 copayment today. So it looks like you owe $60 for the last 3 sessions. Would you like to take care of that today?
Yes.
And then I might say we do require that you pay for today's appointment today, but if you'd like to set up a payment plan for the $40 that's overdue, we can do that.
Ka-ching, ka-ching, and then you pay it and you move on. That all makes a lot of sense, honestly. And the checkout process is so important. But then you'd also say...
Yes, we would move into... It looks like Dr. Smith wants to see you in 6 months.
That's right.
Let's get that scheduled today.
You say good
I
month.
would not say, would you like to schedule that today? Which I have been said to.
Oh, there you go.
It has been said to me.
Yeah.
No, I'll call and do it later.
Yeah, no.
No, we're gonna
just assume.
Let's get this on the calendar now.
So what are some of the biggest pitfalls or mistakes you've seen practices make at checkout, and what's the real world impact of those mistakes?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest pitfall is failing to collect payment at the time of service, which leads to patient aging and collections issues later on. Not to mention patient frustration. Like, we've all heard about our friend who got a bill a year later instead of...
That's crazy. I just got one from a year ago. It's crazy.
From last September.
September. It was wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think I've mentioned this, but your patient aging shouldn't exist.
Yeah, I agree. Well, for today, it should exist.
Not
ever.
No, it shouldn't exist.
Well, I guess that's true. Everything should be paid up.
I mean, it can exist, right? There's a reason it exists.
Mm-hmm.
But there is absolutely no built-in delay.
Yes.
To patient collections.
You are the
unless you're the bottleneck.
You are the delay, yeah. Right.
Yes. So another mistake is not having a clear process for handling outstanding patient balances. So you need to have very clear payment plan policies, very clear financial hardship policies that you know and you can speak in layman's terms. So you can allow them to grow, don't want to allow them to grow without a plan for resolution. And then failure to communicate balance changes, which is not just a checkout problem. And I think we're just a couple episodes away from talking about communicating patient balances in eligibility and benefits.
That's true.
But it is really important that if a patient's benefits change, if their policy changes, if their benefit stage changes, that you catch that in a timely manner and communicate it to them, so that if they go from, hey, I was paying nothing at the end of the year and now I owe $150 every time I come see you, that they are aware of that change. I think that's part of informed consent.
Yeah, for sure.
So these mistakes really create that poor patient experience that we're trying to avoid. We do not want to surprise patients. No surprises, Act.
No surprises.
We don't want to surprise an unexpected bill in the mail. It says weeks or months later, but I'm going to say months or a year later.
That.
The statute of limitations for patient balances in some, like I think Michigan's like 7 years.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah. And you might have a different agreement on hand in your contract with the insurance company, but it can be really crazy. That's not very kind. And then the other thing I would say is that this can also result in a high volume of calls for administrative staff from patients that are confused about bills. And if you don't have good people, probably if you have a lot of people confused about bills, you don't have well-trained staff anyway.
That's right.
So now all of a sudden you're going to get a higher volume of calls that they don't really know how to properly handle. And that's going to consume a lot of valuable time and energy. And that's just going to destroy your reputation even faster, because now you have your people that are well-trained over here having to do this job and they're not doing this other thing.
That's right.
It's just a pitfall. Yeah.
One mistake in your notes can cost you a reimbursement. Blueprint helps providers avoid that by writing smarter documentation, flagging issues early, and getting claims out the door faster. Check the show notes for the link to give it a try for free.
So, Kathryn, what are the key tools that can help with checkout, and how do they work together to perfect this final stage of patient registration?
We've got the payment authorization form, which is also part of intake paperwork, but I would recommend having that as an individual form, not as the packet on file at checkout, because you are often going to be updating that as cards. Maybe they want to put a different card on file. Maybe they want to put an ACH on file. Maybe their card expired. But this is a legally binding document that gives your practice permission to keep a patient's credit card or debit card or ACH on file and to charge it for services rendering and outstanding balances. Without that on file, you do not have permission to charge their card.
It's true.
They need to have signed a physical form, or maybe it can be electronic, but it needs to be signed.
Love it.
And then the checkout checklist is the second one, which is a procedural guide for your staff to ensure that every necessary step is taken at the end of each appointment. Okay. Am I collecting payment? Have I reviewed the financial policy if I need to? Have I scheduled the next appointment? Have I resolved any insurance issues or questions? Have I provided a super bill? Have I answered any questions? Have I provided any releases, referrals? It's going to just walk you through the shorthand of what needs to happen in checkout. And these tools work in tandem, because the payment authorization form provides the authority to collect payment, and the checklist ensures that that authority is consistently and correctly applied at every checkout. So I would say that these tools are meant to really empower your staff to have a clear, consistent conversation with patients about money, turning that potentially awkward interaction into a professional and efficient process. And it really is the perfect loop closer on that reputation.
I love it. Yeah,
piece.
I love it.
You want people to feel cared for, even though the hard conversation around money can be awkward.
It can be awkward, but we have a department that deals with collecting from patients.
We do.
I think we have had in the last 4 years one complaint from a patient. Here's what that tells you. It's not that we are sitting on some kind of special sauce. What the reality is that people want to pay for their services. And it is so rare that you ask your patient. They expect to, and a lot of them want to. And it's the very, very rare exception that you say, okay, this is what it is. And the person freaks out because they want or expect free services.
Yeah.
And not to pay for it. It's so rare, folks.
I think that tells me something else too. The fact that we've really, this is not to toot our own horn, we really only had one patient complaint in this department. It also tells me that having somebody who is trained in billing is very valuable in that role, because the person that runs that department for us is a biller who can read ERAs who can understand what's happening with the claim and then can very clearly, in layman's terms, explain that to a patient.
And here's what that means for you. You're not taking work home on a Saturday, sitting down at your kitchen table, working through some sort of patient ledger, trying to figure out what your patient owes. How many Saturdays could you all get back if you had a clear process here at checkout?
Or to even go above and beyond what you said, maybe part of the reason that you're at home working is because your cash flow stinks.
Yeah.
And actually, the person at checkout is controlling a lot of that for you.
Yep. That would be a hard conversation.
Yeah. So now, Jeremy, it's time to do our case study card already. And today's card asks, tell us about a time you saw practice suffer from a flawed checkout process. What went wrong and how could it have been avoided? Do you have a story that comes to mind?
So this is actually, I'm going to flip the script a little bit. Not a flawed one, but this is a practice that told a story on a podcast recently and implemented a very robust system because they were having some issues. Now, they didn't go into what those issues were, but they did talk about how they dialed in their checkout procedure in a way that revolutionized how they did things. So this is what they did. They started to measure their time to the third next available appointment for new and established appointments per provider. The theory was...
I don't quite understand what that means.
Yeah, so it was how quickly are they going to get their third appointment in? Not the next one, not the one after that, but their third one.
For the same patient?
No, for they have a line of patients.
Okay.
They're not measuring. They're not measuring their first one. They're not measuring the second one. They're only measuring how fast is that third one getting done. Here's the theory. The theory is that the first or second available checkouts, they could be last minute. They could have something go wrong in the room. Who knows? But the third available patient is going to best illustrate the availability and efficiency of their providers. It's a really interesting theory. So they would get that data and they would look at their schedule in the middle of the night, really. Software would look at the schedule in the middle of the night, and then it would sort of orient their KPIs that way. And they don't really need to look at it very long because they were measuring, the checkout person had this screen that was measuring that data.
Was she like hitting a button every time she was done with the checkout?
Yeah, like it was built into the EHR.
Interesting.
So every time somebody would check out, they would measure the third one. And it was that person's job to make sure that that number stayed within a certain range. And so they started to collect more. They started to have faster checkouts, which meant their provider utilization went up and their office functioned way faster. So they would move from having all of these delays, even in their wait room, but they were able to push the envelope on what was possible in their practice by measuring that particular KPI and publishing it. Yeah. And if there was an issue at checkout and that number started to creep up, they would have a supervisor, somebody who knows billing. They would come out and they would deal with it at checkout. Really so the manager could tell within minutes if something was wrong at checkout that needed to be addressed. So it was a really clever way of thinking through the checkout process.
That's interesting because I think it was probably a missed opportunity here for me to talk about speed.
Right.
Like I didn't even think to mention that you're going to have people ending their appointments around the same time. They're all going to be at the desk. How quickly is it happening?
Totally. And what they found is by measuring and fixing the checkout process, they found out some key moments in their practice when the patient was finished with whichever provider it was, when the patient arrived at the checkout desk, and when they were finished and departed. And they were able to track a lot because they made that 2-inch shift in their clinic, and it revolutionized a bunch of other procedures within their practice.
That's going to make me excited about next week's episode because we're talking about KPIs.
Yo, it's great.
It's just so nice to know how, like, where to look so you can adjust things. And
it's such an odd thing to measure, right? The third checkout in line. I would
Is
never.
It like every third? Is that what they're doing? Yeah.
It was just one of those KPIs that I would never think to look at.
I don't know why that. Like, why not all of them?
I know, but for some reason that moved them forward. So I'm sure there's some statistical math that somebody could do to figure out why that was important, but that's what happened.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
cool.
So today we checked out.
We're not checked out.
We're not
still
checked
here.
out. We talked about the checkout process, though, and how it can really set you apart from a reputation standpoint. We discussed a few tools today, the payment authorization form and the checkout checklist that are available through our online learning hub, the Hourglass. If you think those would be helpful for your practice, check out the link in the show notes to the Hourglass.
Cool. Next time on the Claim Game, we will be discussing the key patient registration metrics, the KPIs. What should you be tracking to verify the success in patient registration? It won't be the third appointment, but it is interesting. You won't want to miss it.
If you enjoyed today's episode of The Claim Game, please take a moment to leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really helps new listeners to find us. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to The Claim Game on your favorite podcast app. Your feedback means so much to us. We want to provide valuable education about revenue cycle management. So if there's something we didn't cover in our topic that was a burning question for you, please let us know so we can try to get you the information you desire. You can find the links to all resources we mentioned in this episode in the show notes. And if you want to dive deeper into our resources, we have two places you can do that. First, you can go to our blog at practicesol.com/blog, where we have 8 years of educational blogs. If you want to learn more about what Practice Solutions does, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Just go to practicesol.com to learn more and to connect with one of our awesome people on our team. Thanks for listening. We are Jeremy and Kathryn Zug, and this is The Claim Game. See you at the game table next time.